Line drive kick. Returnable for Rodgers, and he muffed it. Picked up by the Bears. To the left side and a touchdown. Jordan Howard. Rivers throwing into the end zone. Touchdown, Antonio Gates. Alex going deep. Has a man open. It is caught. Tyreek Hill for the touchdown. 64 yards. And here is Jerick McKinnon, practically untouched to the end zone for the touchdown. And he has yet to miss anything this year. That one's blocked. The Bears have it. The Bears are going to get a touchdown out of this.
Fantasy football, Goon and Tooch. 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 Fantasy football,
Touchdown.
Welcome to the Fantasy Football Goon podcast. Fantasy Football Goon is a part of the Bears Barroom Radio Network. I'm your host, Joe Mandel, the Goon, and this is our rankings and preseason update show. Joining me as always is my co-host and good buddy, John Santucci. Tooch, how's it going, bud? How's everything?
Everything's going great, Joe, and I'm ready to talk some fantasy football rankings.
Yeah, man. So before we get into those rankings, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the preseason updates, things that have happened since we did our division previews and players that were cut and all that good stuff. So without further ado, John, let's hop right into it. One of the biggest free agency off-season updates is after the injury of Darius Geis in Washington. The Redskins went out this week and signed Adrian Peterson to a one-year deal at the veterans minimum. John, what do you think about his fantasy value in Washington?
Probably minimal, Joe. Last year he had a couple games and then got injured himself. It's a wait and see for me, Joe. I would like to see, how he does. And will he be ready? Is he in shape? Lots of questions. Maybe a waiver wire pickup for me, Joe.
Yeah, John, I tend to agree with you. I think they have Chris Thompson, who's going to be their receiving back out of the backfield. They have Rob Kelly, who's a little bit banged up. And then now you add Adrian Peterson into the mix with a bunch of other injured backs. And it's just a little muddy for me. I don't have a problem if someone picks him up and kind of stashes him as, a last-ditch effort with a chance to kind of catch some lightning in a bottle. But I think if you're going to pick him up, if your league is one of those leagues that lets you stash players on IR even if they aren't hurt, I think Adrian Peterson might be a good guy to toss on IR and just kind of stash him and see what happens. So Adrian Peterson's kind of a wait and see for me, but I don't have a problem with it if you just want to stash him or get him with the last pick of your draft. So, Adrian Peterson has got potential, John.
It would be a hell of a story too, Joe.
Yeah, well, we'll have to wait and see. Alex Smith helped out Kareem Hunt last year, so I guess you never know.
Yeah, Chris Thompson, obviously the guy to own there. But boy, Adrian Peterson, his career, really, was on a Hall of Fame trajectory and then got derailed. Injuries, personal problems, and contract squabbles. But boy, if he made a return and, rushed for like 1,200 yards, wouldn't that be a great story?
That would be something else, but we're gonna have to wait and see on that story. But for right now, I would stash him or kind of wait on waivers. But the next update we have here is the Raiders actually signed Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie to kind of help bolster their defense/secondary. Obviously, this defense is very good with Khalil Mack, but that's a big question mark right now, given all the trade talk. John, what do you think about the addition of Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie?
Well, it's a defense that needed help. Then there's still the Khalil Mack situation. To me, you know how I feel about the Raiders. I think they're a last-place team in that division.
Yeah.
So, it's a work in progress and a group that's going to take, a year to get ready.
For sure. And Khalil Mack is a whole nother situation here as well. There's a lot of talk emerging, and the latest news is that the Jets seem to be the front runner right now. But, you know, the Chicago Bears are still in the mix. He's a great player defensively, and you imagine it's gonna take quite a bit to land him. John, I don't really know where I think he's gonna land, but where do you think Khalil Mack ends up ultimately at the start of the season?
Well, I'd love to see him on the Bears. Being a Bears fan myself, it's going to be a high price.
Yeah.
Though, so probably 2 first-round draft picks, and the Bears are, they're an ascending team that needs draft capital. Although they have the cap space, and it all depends on the price. Mm-hmm. Maybe they can, a first and a third.
Yeah.
Maybe they knock it down to something like that.
I think it might end up being something like that, and I do think the reports about the Jets being the front runners kind of make sense, because what do the Raiders need, John? They need a quality backup. They have Teddy Bridgewater, who seems to be playing well, and they have draft picks that are disposable right now in an effort to get this team back in the limelight and back to winning ways. So I would not be surprised to see him end up on the Jets, but as a Bears fan too, I would be, ecstatic for the Bears to land him, but we'll wait and see on that front. So lots to talk about in the NFL before the regular season starts. The Vikings also bolstered their defense, John. They signed safety George Iloka to kind of bolster that secondary. This is a huge move for the Vikings, John, and what were you telling me earlier about the Vikings?
Well, they're in win mode now, and Iloka is a good player. He's kind of a big safety, so he'll fill that kind of dime linebacker role, and this is the win. There's lots of pressure in Minnesota. This is their winner. They're the favorites to win the division. So it makes sense for them to add, extra pieces.
Super Bowl or bust for them, John. And anything less than that is going to be seen as a failure. So lots of pressure for Kirk Cousins and the rest of that team. Another big move that happened today was the Patriots released Kenny Britt. So you and I obviously talked a lot about Kenny Britt in the preseason, about what was going to happen with him and kind of how he's bounced team to team. Where do you think he's going to land, John? I think it's kind of intriguing because I think there's a lot of teams that could probably use his services right now.
Well, maybe Minnesota.
You never know.
Right? Yeah, third could be a third receiver behind Diggs and Thielen. Another team that comes to mind would probably be Arizona. Mm-hmm. They've lost a few pieces in their wide receiver core. Seattle's banged up with their wide receivers.
Yep. I'm with you, John. I think Seattle's a really good fit for him. They're banged up and they don't have a whole lot outside of Doug Baldwin right now. So I think that's probably my favorite spot for him to land, at least for fantasy value.
Yeah, it makes sense.
And moving on, the Kansas City Chiefs also made a big move, releasing Charkandrick West. All of us fantasy players know Charkandrick West as the great fill-in for when Jamal Charles got hurt, and he kind of stepped in and had a dynamite fantasy season. So Charkandrick West has always done great production when he's active. So this was kind of a surprising cut for me, John. There are tons of teams that could use his help right now. Amongst them, it has to be, I don't know. The Chicago Bears come to mind, but they just signed Niall Davis.
Minnesota, Joe.
Yeah, Minnesota's in need.
They lost Jerick McKinnon.
They did.
Charkandrick West, a smaller, third down back. So he'd be okay up there too. They have Dalvin Cook, Latavius Murray. Minnesota. Everybody should go to Minnesota. They're going for it, right, Joe?
Yeah, they're going all in. And I think another team to consider here is Seattle again. Their running game is in trouble. I mean, Rashad Penny, his finger is broken, but he's expected to be ready for the season. So I think Rashad Penny and Charkandrick West would be a good duo. But again, they have a logjam there, so you never really know what's going to happen. But just a situation to monitor, because if he has the right opportunity, Charkandrick West is usually pretty good in fantasy.
Yeah, he's a smaller back, He's like the Chiefs' Tariq Cohen.
Exactly.
Built like that. So if whoever needs a third down back, Charkandrick West, I'm sure he'll hook up somewhere. He's too talented to be out of the league. It's just a matter of time to find out where he's going to end up.
For sure. And during our division previews, we talked quite a bit about some of the kicking competitions out there in fantasy world. And amongst the highlights of this week with kickers. The Jets have cut veteran kicker Cairo Santos, and then the Vikings also released Kai Forbath. So the rookie Daniel Carson wins the job in Minnesota. So lots of stuff going on with kickers, and I imagine there may be more in the week and a half coming up before the season. But
yeah, that's interesting. The kicking competition in Minnesota. You know that a win now team is going with the rookie. I mean, Danny talked about that in our last show, and it's a surprise. You know, I thought they would go with the veteran, but yeah, they're going with the rookie draft pick with the big leg.
Another update here: the Saints have cut running back Terrence West. Terrence West has had some fantasy value in Baltimore the last few years, and he's looking for a new home. I can't imagine he's going to be out of work long, especially with all the injuries to running back in the league right now. If I have to say where he's going to land, I really don't know, because he's kind of had success roller coaster throughout his career, kind of up and down. John, do you have any idea where Terrence West is going to land?
He's the guy that could end up out of the league, you know, unless injuries, you know, overtake a team at the running back position. But yeah, I didn't even know he was on the Saints, to tell you the truth. I was still thinking he was in Baltimore. But yeah, I don't know what to wait and see for Terrence West.
Yeah, for now, keep him on waivers because he doesn't have a team. Another big headlining story from the week was that Dez Bryant visited Cleveland and came away without an offer. So don't exactly know what's going on there. You know, there's talk back and forth, but they did not complete a deal while Dez Bryant was in Cleveland. So is it possible that he retires, John, or do you think he might find a home ultimately in the next few weeks?
Well, I'm guessing it's probably a question of salary. Wherever he's been looking, he just hasn't, you know, not enough money for him to come back, I'm thinking. But, you know, teams go through injury attrition throughout the season. There's a chance he could, you know, hook on with the team for a playoff run. At this point, I would say his prospects are dim, though.
Yeah, and with this being our ranking show, before the season started, I had him ranked at number 50 at wide receiver because I thought he was going to land a team and have some potential. But I removed him from my updated rankings. I made a few changes this morning, which we'll talk about when we get into the rankings section. And then I had one more thing I wanted to talk about here, John, and there's a report coming out today that the Green Bay Packers are open to trading Randall Cobb. Now, that kind of baffles me, but I know they do have a young, promising player in Geronimo Allison, but is Randall Cobb expendable to you? Because he's been super productive over the last few years.
Yeah, it's a head scratcher for me, Joe. I think he's very productive. He's limited action he produces. So maybe he's got some injuries we don't know about. Who knows? I don't think it'd be a good move, though. They drafted 3 wide receivers this past draft, so I guess you could say he's expendable.
He's kind of expendable, but again, he's been productive, especially with his connection to Aaron Rodgers. And I know Aaron's not super happy that they let go of Jordy Nelson, so that may be another thing to kind of, you know, build up tension in Green Bay. So I don't know if that would be the smartest thing to do, depending on what the return would be. Maybe they're trying to get in on the Khalil Mack sweepstakes. I don't know. But then again, then the Raiders would have Jordy Nelson and Randall Cobb, so that would be kind of hilarious. That's pretty much all I wanted to talk about in terms of preseason updates. Obviously, there's going to be things that happen as the rest of the preseason plays out, but we wanted to do this to kind of touch on all the things that have happened and keep an eye on our Twitter feed at FFBGoon to keep you in the loop on all the fantasy news you need. But with that said, John, you want to talk rankings?
Yeah, let's talk some rankings. I'm excited about that.
And quickly, John, before we get into the rankings, there's one more thing, breaking news. Cowboys center Travis Frederick has been diagnosed with an autoimmune disease called Guillain-Barré disease, which there is no timetable for his return to football right now. So that's a huge blow to the Cowboys offensive line and to the value of Ezekiel Elliott. I mean, he's still going to be very good, but obviously having Frederick at center would be a huge upside for them. So hopefully he has a quick recovery and can be, treated well for that, and hopefully he comes back stronger than ever.
That's also bad news for me, Joe, as I drafted Ezekiel Elliott in a Bears Barroom Fantasy League. So, yikes.
I think Zeke's going to be fine. Moving into my rankings here, and if you want to see them in person, go ahead and visit us at fantasyfootballgoon.com and then go click on the rankings page. Talked about running backs here, and I don't think there's any other number one than Todd Gurley right now, John. I think you and I are on the same page with that after his huge season last year.
Yeah, I mean, Le'Veon Bell and Todd Gurley probably 1 and 1A. And then you have the other running backs, Ezekiel Elliott, David Johnson. So, yeah, but Todd Gurley, after last season, number 1, Le'Veon Bell, it was a threat he could hold out. He wants that new contract. So, yeah, they're a good 1 and 2.
Yep, and that's exactly who I have, 1 and 2. I have Todd Gurley and Le'Veon Bell. Obviously, those guys are going to be bell cows. They're going to be fantastic. Number 3 is a guy we were just talking about, John, and Ezekiel Elliott. I think that he's going to be very good. And then in a bit of, some people might disagree with me on this. I know Danny Shimon does. But I have Saquon Barkley ranked at number 4 at running back. I just really like what he brings to that Giants offense. And I think he's going to be a fantasy monster. I think he's going to be the guy getting all the carries and catching balls out of the backfield. So I think he's going to put up multiple 30, 40-point games this season, and that's why I have him ranked at number 4. John, what do you think about that?
Well, I'm kind of with Danny. I kind of want to wait and see. However, they did improve their offensive line, so he's a good receiver out of the backfield. Guys that I like, that I would take ahead of Saquon Barkley are Leonard Fournette and Melvin Gordon, just because, they are the guys and they've done it before. But once, like I said before, once those running backs go off the board, you're going to be hard-pressed, not to draft someone like Saquon Barkley or, Alvin Kamara, Kareem Hunt, and it was one of those next picks. So
for sure, man, and I just it's all gut feeling for me. I just like what I see out of him, and I think he's going to command fantasy attention. So everyone's going to have to wait and see on that. But again, I really like Barkley this year. Following Barkley at number 5, I've got David Johnson coming back from injury, but he is also a monster. He's a PPR machine, and he is going to command the attention of everyone in his return as long as he can stay healthy. So, he's heavily involved in that offense. It goes through him. So I have him ranked at number 5. And then, to some people's surprise, John, at number 6, I've got Alvin Kamara. I know there's a lot of buzz going around if he can be as good as he was last year and as productive. And I think we all know the answer is no. I don't think he can match those numbers, especially with, a full season and the bumps and bruises and all that stuff. But then again, I still think he's going to be valuable. I think even if he gets close to those numbers, he's going to be a great fantasy running back, and he's going to be a guy that you can trust on a weekly basis. So while I don't think he's going to hit the crazy amount of touchdowns he had last year, I think he's going to be very good, and in PPR leagues, he's going to be even better. So Alvin Kamara, I'm a big fan. I know you are too, John.
Yeah, it helps him that Mark Ingram is suspended for the first 4 games, so it's going to be all Kamara.
Yeah, it's going to be mostly Kamara. In those 4 games, he's going to have even more fantasy value. So get all the value out of him while you can. And then at number 7, I have a guy that you and I both love, John, and I'm talking about Leonard Fournette. The Jaguars really upgraded their offensive line in the offseason, and boom, look at Fournette. He's probably licking his chops because he's looking to build off that really impressive rookie season. You and I both love Fournette. Talk to me about your boy, John.
Yeah, that's why I actually would have him higher, but here's the reason why. The Jaguars worked on their offensive line, like you said, and they signed Andrew Norwell, who's arguably one of the top guards. And behind Andrew Norwell last season, Jonathan Stewart ran for 5-6 yards a carry. Behind the rest of the line, he was running for like 2 yards a carry. But when he ran behind Norwell, averaging big yards. So Fournette, running behind that improved Jaguar offensive line, I love it. Plus, the defense is going to give him plenty of chances, for the offense. So, plenty of time for them to kill the clock with Fournette. So if they get ahead, the defense, keeps the other team down. That great defense on Jacksonville keeps the other team down. You if Jacksonville puts up a bunch of points, though, you might not see Fournette, but I think there'll be plenty of time for Fournette to run out the clock. And then, on the way to building that lead, they're going to be running behind Andrew Norwell.
Yeah, they sure are, and that's why we love Leonard Fournette, baby. So he's a guy you definitely want on your squad. The next guy here is another kid who was fantastic last year in his rookie year. I'm talking about, Kareem Hunt in Kansas City. He's just a quality player in a good situation, in a good offense. And I think he's just going to have the opportunity there. I expect him to build on his year last year. We all know he slowed down in the second half of the season. But with the new offseason, comes a new setup and a new quarterback. And I think that whole team is going to have a swagger to it. And I expect Kareem Hunt to kind of carry that load. John, how do you feel about Kareem Hunt?
Well, I like the offense. It just all depends on, it all depends on Patrick Mahomes. Is like Danny said, they could stack the box against Hunt, force Mahomes to throw and beat teams. But, Kareem Hunt, I expect him to regress a little bit, but he's still going to be good. And then, of course, Spencer Ware is back. Mm-hmm. So how much is Spencer Ware going to eat into Kareem Hunt's time? Like they did let go of Charkandrick West, like we said earlier. So that's good news for Kareem Hunt. That's one less mouth to feed.
Yep.
But I still like guys like Fournette and Gordon a little bit more because that they're the guys.
Well, that's a fantastic.
Same with Jordan Howard.
Yeah, that's actually a really good segue, Johnny. Next, that's a great segue into the next guy I got on this list, and that's Melvin Gordon at number 9. I really like Melvin Gordon. He took a huge step last year, had a really impressive season. He's a utility guy. I mean, he can do everything on the field. He's wears many hats, and he's got a great offense. He's got Phillip Rivers, and the rest of that quality team around him. I just expect him to take a step up this year. I mean, he's the guy. He doesn't have really any competition beside Austin Eckler, who the only time he's going to have any fantasy value is really if Melvin Gordon goes down. So he's the mean old lead dog there, and you got to love what he brings to the table.
Yeah, Austin Eckler's a smaller player, more of a third down back, change of pace, good receiver. But yeah, Melvin Gordon doesn't have any competition. He's the man. He catches the ball. He runs the ball. Had 8 or 10 touchdowns last year. Went over 1,000 yards. So I expect the same from him this year. And like you said, Los Angeles, they have a lot of weapons, and Phillip Rivers driving the car. And Phillip Rivers, awful consistent.
He's very consistent, and arguably one of the most consistent players in the league. So obviously we love Melvin Gordon. Top 10 pick for sure. Next guy here I have ranked at number 10. Had a very promising rookie campaign, and Dalvin Cook until he got injured last year, and he was an absolute machine. I know you had him on your fantasy team, John. He was doing really well until he got hurt, but he's got a great team around him, and as long as he's fully healthy, I expect him to have a lot of success here, and I think he's going to be one of those surprise comeback players of the year.
Yeah, he should be fine as long as that knee's ready. Still has Latavius Murray in the background, but I think Dalvin Cook should have a fine year. He's kind of in that second tier. Maybe a couple more guys I like a little bit better than him, but of course they're rookies. We like a lot of rookies, like we talked about with Danny. We talked about a lot of rookie running backs. This could be another year for a lot of rookie running backs, and I'm sure you have a lot of those guys ranked as well.
There's a handful of guys on there. But the next guy I have here in line at number 11 is probably something I'm going to get some flack for. But I've got Jordan Howard here ranked at number 11 at running back. I'm sure Phil doesn't agree with me there, but I just think that there's other guys that are going to have more fantasy value. I still think Jordan Howard's a really good player. You and I talked about how we think he's going to catch more balls out of the backfield this year. And he's just kind of set up to succeed in that new offense. So I have high expectations for him. I still think he's going to be potential to finish as the top 10 running back. John, what do you think about Jordan Howard and how he can progress in fantasy this year?
I actually think this will be Jordan Howard's best year. I think he's got the potential to have a Kareem Hunt season from last year. With the added catches, I think he's going to catch more balls out of the backfield. And they're going to run him a lot. They have the weapons on the outside to keep defenses honest and give Howard less 8, and he even saw 9-man boxes last year and still made positive yards. So I like Howard. I would be happy to have him on my fantasy team.
Yeah, no doubt about it. He's one of those guys that the Bears are happy to have, and he's probably the best player on the Bears right now, at least in my opinion. At number 12, I have a guy that kind of fell a little bit in my rankings, and that's Devontae Freeman. I think he's really good. I think he's got all the talent in the world. I just think that with Tevin Coleman in the backfield with him, it kind of decreases his value a little bit. I could be wrong. He's probably going to make me eat my words here, but Devontae Freeman is a talented guy. I just think there's guys that have better fantasy value than him right now. But ranked at number 12, I don't think that's a bad ranking. I think he's still a very good player, and he's someone that I would definitely want on my team if I could land him in the second round. John, what do you think about Devontae Freeman?
Due for a bounce back, I think. This is a year for Freeman to bounce back. I think had a bit of a down year last year. I think this year he gets closer to 1,000 yards. And, he's the goal line back in Atlanta. He's the guy they feed on the goal line. So another good fantasy pick. If you get him, I think he's underrated.
Yeah, I think he's a great value pick, especially for someone that's probably going to go in the second round. So Devontae Freeman, great value pick, has a lot of potential. And I know another hot take here, John, is my next pick here at number 13, Christian McCaffrey. People don't know if he's going to be the every down back. They have C.J. Anderson there. Kind of clouds up things a little bit. But I think if you're in a PPR league, then Christian McCaffrey is going to be your guy. I still think he's going to be very productive this season, even with C.J. Anderson. But I know you loved McCaffrey last year. What's your outlook on him this year?
Well, I predicted he'd catch 80 balls last year. How many balls did he catch last year, Joe?
That was pretty darn close. I don't remember the number off the top of my head.
I think it was 80, on 5 catches a game, and he was right there. So for PPR, I love this kid. I think he's going to catch close to 80 balls again. So we'll see how he does running between the tackles. They did lose Andrew Norwell. He might not have as good of a running between the tackles year. But we'll see. I mean, this is a guy who can take a screen pass all the way for a touchdown. But they also have C.J. Anderson there. And he's a good runner, too, and they like to pound the ball as well. So it's going to cut into some of Christian McCaffrey's carries. But, he's still a very valuable back. I kind of rank him along around Deion Lewis in Tennessee, where DeMarco Murray is gone. Deion Lewis is going to take all those catches. He looks pretty good in preseason action, so both these running backs, Lewis and McCaffrey, would be very good PPR picks.
Yeah, that's for sure something we're going to talk about Deion Lewis a little bit later. But the next guy I have here on my list at number 14 is LaShawn McCoy. He's here strictly based on his talent. I know there's a lot of things blowing around about his offseason and some domestic violence charges against him. So, he's not been formally charged, so that's something we have to say. He's not formally charged, but he's been accused of hiring some men to beat up his ex-girlfriend and mug her and steal things from her. So that's a suspension issue we need to watch, and that's the reason he's fallen as far as he did on my list. So it's something you have to have in the back of your head when you draft LaShawn McCoy. Also, he's going to be 30, so I expect him to regress a little bit more. But LaShawn McCoy is still a talented guy. He's in an offense that's going to allow him to succeed. So if he is playing, LaShawn McCoy is a quality back, especially for how late you can get him. I know people are scared of him, but you may need to use that to your advantage because I don't think they're anywhere near being able to prove anything. So a suspension is probably a ways away.
Well, I've got some thoughts on Shady McCoy. We talked with Danny. I said, when are the wheels going to fall off and teams are going to stack the box and force some of those they have a mess at quarterback. I think Josh Allen is actually going to be the one they might as well just go ahead and start.
Oh yeah, for sure.
The other guys just aren't any good. Just the Josh Allen, they drafted him in the first round. They should develop him and let him throw him out there in this rookie year. And he could open it up for McCoy to make those yardage up the make those catches. So where before we thought they'd stack the box against A.J. McCarron, I forget the other guy's name. Was it Nathan Peterman?
Yeah, I believe so.
Nathan Peterman and A.J. McCarron, those guys do not strike fear into the hearts of opposing defenses. So Josh Allen, got a good arm.
Yeah.
He's a guy who can rocket it in there, and he can really throw a fastball, by cornerbacks who thought they might get to the ball. And that's going to, maybe open it up for McCoy. They can't stack the box. Allen all it needs is a couple deep balls to open it up. Connecting deep with, they got Kelvin Benjamin now.
And they just acquired Corey Coleman from the Cleveland Browns as well. So he's got some weapons to work with.
Yeah, he really does. And that's why I think McCoy is probably going to be underdrafted. You got to wait and see, but the talent is definitely there. Like, he catches the ball, he runs the ball, he can break long runs. It's just the defenses are going to force Josh Allen to throw first until he proves himself, and then I think things will open up for Shane McCoy.
Yeah, and I think they will eventually. But the next guy here is a guy that's kind of unproven, but I like what I've seen out of him. I know he's injured right now, but Jerick McKinnon I have ranked at number 15. I really think he's the perfect fit for that offense out there in San Francisco, and he's going to be a pass-catching back. He's going to be the guy out there as long as he's healthy. I know Matt Breida, his backup, is also banged up right now, but I think Jerick McKinnon's worth the flyer. I think if you can get him on your team, he could be your number 2 running back that acts like a number 1. So I really like Jerick McKinnon, and as long as he's healthy this year, I really think he's going to put up a lot of fantasy points.
Well, he's in the right place in San Francisco. He never really impressed me that much in Minnesota. But, he's banged up now. It's a wait and see for me. But, he could, like you say, catch the ball, run the ball. This is a guy who will do it all. He could play all 3 downs. And then be spelled by Matt Breida. Of course, Jerick McKinnon hasn't always been able to stay healthy. So.
Yeah, that's true. He's been struggling to stay healthy over the years, but I like what he brings to the table, so hopefully he stays healthy. And the next guy on this list, John, is a guy that I drafted in our league draft on Saturday, and I feel really good about him this year. And I'm talking about Alex Collins from Baltimore. He had a great season last year. He was really good down the stretch for Baltimore, and I think he's going to have a lot more success because he's got all the tools around him. And, he's just a hard-working back, and he's kind of a bell cow to me, John. I mean, I was a huge fan of him last year, and I'm excited I have him on my team now. So I think he's going to be able to put up running back 1 type numbers, even though you're going to be able to get him relatively late in your draft. How do you think Alex Collins is going to do this year?
Well, he's a guy I targeted. He's highly productive, nice yards per carry average. There really isn't anybody else competing with him in Baltimore. He's the man. And then, they have a 3rd down back in Buck Allen, but Alex Collins also capable of catching the ball. So, yeah, I love that. I love Alex Collins. I targeted him in the draft, and you're the guy that got him.
I sniped him from you, John.
You sure did.
We always snipe each other. We like Alex Collins, so hopefully he does good this year. It's a good story about his emergence. And just quick disclaimer here, we're going to just do my top 30 for running backs, and then the rest of them are going to be on fantasyfootballgoon.com. So just so you know, we're going to number 17 right now. At number 17, I have Joe Mixon from Cincinnati. He showed me a lot last season. I know it was a bit of an up and down year, but Joe Mixon's got all the tools, and he's seems to have bulked up quite a bit in the offseason. He's the lead dog there. Jeremy Hill's gone. And I like what I've seen out of Joe Mixon, so I expect him to be very good. Cincinnati's going to rely on him heavily to get things done.
Yeah, jury's still out on Joe Mixon for me. He's very talented. I want to see him do it first. I thought about drafting him a couple times, and I probably should have, but I didn't end up with as many good running backs. I think people need to pay attention to this list of yours, and you really have to target running backs this year because they go fast.
They do. All of a sudden, they were all gone in our league. We're in a 12-man league, and before you know it, with the snap of your fingers, there was nothing good left. So Joe Mixon's a quality guy. If you can get him on your team, especially, probably falling in the 3rd, 4th round maybe, if you can get him there, I think that's a really good spot for him. And the next guy here is at number 18 is a guy I'm really excited about, and that's Derrick Henry in Tennessee. I'd like to see what he can really do now that he's the lead dog. I know they have Dion Lewis as well in the backfield, but I think Lewis will be more of a third down back, and I think that Henry's going to be, the bell cow. So I'm expecting big things out of Derrick Henry. I know you and I are on the same page with that, John. Derrick Henry, for you, going to have a good year?
It's a wait and see for me. He should, Joe. He should. He just all these years we've been waiting for him. He hasn't done it. DeMarco Murray was there, of course, the past few years. Now they've got Dion Lewis. But yeah, he should be the guy who pounds the rock, takes the beating, gets the goal line carries. But Dion Lewis got a lot of goal line carries in New England as well. So I don't know, Joe. It's something for me. I wait and see. Of the two, I'd rather own Dion Lewis in PPR. I guess standard league, I'd rather own Henry, I guess, but Lewis I'd be fine with too.
It's a wait and see situation, but I like what I've seen out of Henry in the past, so hopefully he can keep it going moving forward. At number 19 here and down in Tampa Bay, I got Ronald Jones ranked here. I really like what I've seen out of him. The only thing is he seems to be struggling a little bit in the passing game, which may hurt his fantasy value, but I think if he keeps working at it, he's going to be productive. And regardless, I expect him to rush for a lot of yards. And I think he could be one of those quality rookie backs that we were talking about before, John. He's got the right opportunity in front of him. What do you think?
Well, like Danny said, it's going to take him a little while to get up to speed in the passing game. And he's got that home run speed. So he by the end of the season, he could be the lead dog there. Right now, Peyton Barber seems to be the lead back there, Joe. But you never know. I think Peyton Barber's going to start the season, and then Ronald Jones probably finish it.
Yeah, I feel the same way. So I think he's worth drafting higher than where he's being drafted right now because I think he's going to be that good. But again, wait and see there. But I think you got to get him now before it becomes a mad rush on waivers. And obviously, at number 20 here is a guy that you and I have talked about quite a bit, and Kenyon Drake down in Miami. After the departure of Jay Ajayi, Kenyon Drake was explosive last year and just a really talented guy, lots of speed, and they're going to involve him heavily now that Ryan Tannehill's back. I like what I see out of Kenyon Drake, and I think he's going to have a big year. So I have no problem getting him. He's ranked at number 20 for me, and I think if you can get him, fifth, maybe sixth round, I love that value because I think he's going to be really, really good. John, what do you think about Kenyon Drake?
Super talented. Love this kid. Good receiver, too. He's great for PPR. He's got Frank Gore nipping at his heels, but obviously Kenyon Drake is the one you want to own. Mm-hmm. Love to see him break out this year with all the talent. Probably, I might have him ranked a couple spots higher, but it doesn't matter. I wouldn't mind having him on my fantasy team, though. I'm really anxious to see what he can do as a lead back.
Yeah, I had a hard time giving a ranking to Kenyon Drake because I like him so much. He's definitely got a lot of upside, so he could easily finish, top 10 instead of top 20. So definitely a guy you want. Love it, especially if you get him a little bit late in your draft. Next guy here is Jay Ajayi. Got traded last year from Miami to Philadelphia where he won a Super Bowl. Wasn't that involved, but I think they're going to cater that offense to him. And, Carson Wentz is really going to open things for him. People have to respect, his passing ability. So I think Ajayi's going to get a lot of opportunity, and I think that's how they're going to change up the way they played last year is by featuring Ajayi relatively heavily. So I think he could be a really good, sneaky, later running back that you can pick up, and I think you're going to have the confidence to play him. John, I know you don't love Ajayi, but I think that he's going to have success, at least be set up for it. What do you think about your guy Ajayi? I know you're a little down on him.
Well, he's banged up, but Joe, he's a guy that can put 200 yards up in a single game. We haven't seen him do it with the Eagles, though. That's the thing. Eagles are banged up, quarterback and receiver. So what's to stop teams from, stopping the run and making the backup receivers? And Alshon Jeffrey's not going to start the season. He's on the PUP list. Nelson Aguilar and Mac Hollins are banged up. You're looking at a guy like Shelton Gibson who's been shining in the preseason. So I don't know. There's also Mike Wallace, who probably you may see Wallace and Gibson open the season as the starting wideouts in Philadelphia. And Zach Ertz going to get a lot of balls too, but Ajayi, to me, an injury risk, and then they have other guys like Sproles and Clement that'll eat into his time. But there's some other guys I like a little bit better, but Jay Ajayi, like I said, a guy that can pop for 200 yards.
Yeah, he can. And another guy that's explosive and has a lot of talent is in Indianapolis, and Marlon Mack. I know you and I both like him. I expect him to take another step this year with Andrew Luck healthy. They're going to force people to respect their passing game, and as long as Luck can start chucking the ball, I think he's going to do pretty well. He doesn't have Frank Gore to battle with anymore, so I think this is Marlon Mack's team, and I think he's going really late, and he's a great value pick because Marlon Mack's going super late. He went really late in the draft we did last week, and I expect him to be a great value pick for everyone that gets him on their squad. You think fantasy points are in Marlon Mack's future, John?
Well, he's banged up, Joe, already. I think it's a lower body injury. I don't know if I think it's a hamstring. So you're probably not going to see him the rest of the preseason. To me, he's kind of wait and see. But he's also Jordan Wilkins, the rookie who I like coming out of Ole Miss. This is a kid that could steal some time from Marlon Mack. So they have Jordan Wilkins waiting around. He might start the season as a starter if Marlon Mack isn't ready to go. But Marlon Mack, I love the talent. Just don't like the injuries right now.
Yeah, the injury bug is going around the league, and it's kind of hard to see how things are going to play out with those. But I'm trying to rank strictly off talent, and I think that's where Marlon Mack falls for me. Next guy we have here is Jamal Williams in Green Bay. I know a lot of people really like Aaron Jones. I think Jamal Williams is going to have more fantasy value, especially out of the gate. I like what he brings to this Green Bay team. He was featured heavily last year when he was healthy. So I think Green Bay is going to have to get him involved. And with the addition of Jimmy Graham, I think that might open things up a bit for the running game. John, do you think Jamal Williams is the lead dog in Green Bay right now, or do you think it's Aaron Jones' team when he gets back from suspension?
I think it's going to be Jamal Williams for sure, at least for the start of the season. Then they'll probably work Aaron Jones in. But boy, for those first 4 games, you're going to get a lot of Jamal Williams. So yeah, pretty good pick up if you can grab it. But late season, I'm not sure. I think Aaron Jones may be the more talented back. I love Jamal Williams coming out of college, but Aaron Jones also showed a lot last year as well. And then Tyrone Montgomery is still there, right, Joe? So
yep, I have both
we'll
those.
See. It's a 3-headed monster.
Yeah, both those guys are ranked in here, but obviously Montgomery's towards the bottom, and then I have Aaron Jones at 44, kind of in the middle of the pack. So, but right now I like Jamal Williams a bit. I think he's going to have more fantasy value. So definitely.
I'm waiting for you to get to my guy, Joe. Got a guy.
All right, I don't know who your guy is, but the next guy on this list is Rashad Penny, ranked at number 24 in Seattle. I know he's fighting a broken finger injury right now, but they expect him to start the season. No, he's a really explosive rookie. You and I both love him, and I think it brings stability to a position that Seattle really needs. So I think as long as he's playing, Rashad Penny's going to have fantasy value, and he's going to be a steal, especially where he's going in drafts right now.
Well, I hope so. He's a talented kid. I just think he's a little bit banged up right now. I think Chris Carson is playing awfully well, and I think they trust him more in pass protection. So I think Chris Carson may start the season as the lead back. We'll see, though. Penny, certainly they drafted him in the first round. They're going to want to get him carries. But Chris Carson may be your starting, first few games as the lead running back.
It could be for sure. He probably will. But again, I think the fantasy value lies with Penny. We both think he's the more talented guy. So just something to keep in the back of your head. Next guy we're going to talk about here, John, and I have just a suspicion this might be the guy that you're talking about. Is your guy Royce Freeman?
That is my guy. I saw him in the Bears game. This is a lead back. I'm not at all impressed with Devontae Booker. Devontae Booker may start the season as lead back, but Royce Freeman is a guy who can do it all. He's big. You're going to see him. He's a guy that's going to punch it in the end zone. On the goal, he should get all the goal line carries. I wouldn't waste the time giving Devontae Booker the goal line carries. This guy is big and he's fast and catches the ball well. This guy has superstar written all over him, man. I just think now they have a quarterback. They got two good receivers on the outside. If the tight end game comes together, we saw that. What was his name? Was it Hewerman? Hewerman was a good tight end in that game, and then of course they have Jake Butt as well.
Yeah.
So I love Royce Freeman. I would target him. I'd have him a little bit ranked higher, but it's a rookie. He hasn't done anything yet. But boy, this kid has. To me, he's got star potential.
Yeah, I mean, I love Royce Freeman. I got him ranked at 25 just because I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen with that backfield. But if he's given the opportunity, he's going to finish really well. So, he's a really, really talented player, and Royce Freeman is going to be a guy you need to watch. We'll quickly run through. I'll do a quick hits of my last 5 guys here, John, in the top 30, and then everyone else can visit fantasyfootballgoon.com to check out the rest of our running backs. But we'll quickly hit through the other guys I have. At 26, I've got Duke Johnson in Cleveland. 27, I've got Rex Burkhead from New England. Number 28, a guy we talked about a little bit earlier, Dion Lewis. Lots of potential out of that backfield at number 28. At number 29, I've got Doug Martin from Oakland. I'm expecting pretty big things out of him. I think he's going to have an opportunity to succeed. And then at number 30, I've got Tevin Coleman, arguably the most talented backup in all of football. If Devontae Freeman goes down, Tevin Coleman's value skyrockets, so he needs to be drafted in all leagues. Out of those 5 guys, John, anything there that kind of catches you off guard or anything you agree with?
Well, I wonder if Marshawn Lynch is going to be the lead back in Oakland. I don't know. I like Dion Lewis. Boy, I think he's got a chance for some good fantasy potential. And, of course, Rex Burkhead, part of that New England, 4, 5, 6-headed monster. Sonny Michael is there. Jeremy Hill is there, and Mike Gillislee is there. There's a lot of things going on there.
Yeah, and I know that Burkhead is fighting a partial tear, but they say he's going to play through it. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. But Tom Brady likes Rex Burkhead, and I think he's going to keep liking him this year as long as he's healthy. And some quick highlights for guys that fell outside of my top 30. I've got a few guys that fell just outside, and Kerryon Johnson, an exciting rookie in Detroit. And then Mark Ingram, obviously with his suspension, I knocked him down a few spots. I have him ranked at number 32. Same thing with C.J. Anderson, just outside of my top 30. And same thing with Latavius Murray. So these are all guys that are close to the top 30, but they're not quite there for me. To check out the rest of our running back rankings, make sure you visit fantasyfootballgoon.com and click on the rankings link. But John, let's move into wide receiver. I think we have quite a few guys to talk about. I think we're only going to talk about the top 25, and then we'll let everyone else visit the website. But I don't think there's much question the number 1 receiver in football, John, and that's Antonio Brown in Pittsburgh.
Oh, totally agree. Yeah. You wonder, though, when does he start to regress? Still highly targeted. Usually he gets a 30% share of his team's targets. So definitely the top receiver, Joe.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question. He's worth a first-round pick, and he's going to do well for you, especially in PPR. But then again, he puts up a lot of yardage as well. So in all formats, Antonio Brown is a beast. Number 2, I've got DeAndre Hopkins. I know it's a guy you're high on as well. He's been very productive over the last few years, and he's got the return of his starting quarterback in Deshaun Watson. So I think he's going to be even better this year. Watson looks his way often, and it doesn't get much better than DeAndre Hopkins, John. I know you're a big fan.
I am. He's a big candidate for regression, though, for me this year, as Will Fuller has come back healthy. He didn't produce as much when Will Fuller was opposite him. And then, we'll have to see how Deshaun Watson bounces back from injury. But, yeah, Hopkins is a great receiver, does everything right, great route runner, great hands. We'll see, though. Last year he had a 35% target share, so I don't expect he'll have that much of a target share now with all the other, with Will Fuller back, and they've got some other receivers and new tight ends.
It's true, John.
Of course, still have Lamar Miller and Dante Foreman, but still he's the number 1 receiver.
And we do have to mention here that they do have the easiest schedule in the league in Houston, so that's something else to factor into your decision. DeAndre Hopkins is going to have a great schedule in front of him, so we envision he's going to have a very good season. Another guy that we love is Keenan Allen at number 3. He was an absolute monster last year. The first season he was able to stay healthy for quite some time. Don't know if he can do it again, but just for talent potential, I have him ranked at number 3 because he's a PPR and a yardage monster, and he's going to be all over the field, John. Keenan Allen was an MVP candidate last year, in my opinion. What do you think about Keenan Allen?
Well, I love him. A great route runner. Potential for double-digit catches every game, but always an injury risk. Still, though, this is a Chargers team I really like a lot this year. I'd invest in their offense. So yeah, kind of hard to argue with that.
For sure. And at number 4, I have another guy who I think is extremely talented and is going to have another monster year. And I'm talking about Michael Thomas in New Orleans. Drew Brees is back to throw him the ball, and they've improved the team around him. So Michael Thomas is poised to have another quality year. PPR machine, yardage machine, and amongst other things, he's getting absolutely ripped. He's one of the strongest receivers in the league. He's got a great wingspan, so I think he's going to be one of the top receivers in the game. And to me, he's worth a late first round or early second round pick.
Well, he doesn't really have a lot of competition as the number 1 receiver there in New Orleans. So yeah, he's worked on his route running. He's bigger, faster, stronger. Yeah, this should be a great season from him. Maybe I'd put Julio Jones. I think he'll have a bounce back season this year ahead of him. And AJ Green, of course, is also one of those top receivers. But it's hard to argue with that, though, Joe.
And the next guy here, I think, is going to be a good bounce back candidate as well, and that's Odell Beckham Jr. in New York. He had that terrible ankle injury last year, but I think he's going to bounce back. The rest of that team has gotten much better. They have Saquon Barkley to open things up for the passing game as well. And Odell is just arguably the most talented receiver in the league. So the ball's going to come his way often. And I think Odell is worth still a first or second round pick. And he's going to be very productive this year. He fought off injury and he's coming back stronger. Excited to see what he can do this year, John.
Coming off the severe ankle injury, Joe. We'll have to see how he bounces back from that, Joe.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to watch. Next guy I have here, number 6, is Julio Jones. Obviously a super talented guy, but he has Calvin Ridley, an exciting rookie that may take a few targets away from him, but no one can deny the talent that Julio Jones has. Some people may disagree with me putting him at number 6, but I still think he's a top wide receiver, and if you can get him in the first or second round, you're doing really well.
I actually think he's going to be a candidate for a better year, a bounce back year. I think he'll top last year's numbers, Joe.
Well, he's got the potential and he's got the quarterback to do it. So if anyone's going to have a huge year, it's definitely going to be Julio Jones. Next guy I have here is another good bounce back candidate too, John. That's T.Y. Hilton out of Indianapolis. Andrew Luck is back. I know Hilton had an injury scare last week, but he was just a small muscle strain and they expect him to be okay. T.Y.'s, he's a talented player. He always is a deep threat. And if he's got Andrew Luck chucking him the ball, he's an elite wide receiver. There's no way you can argue that. So if Luck is back to his old ways, I think we can expect the same out of T.Y.
Yeah, both guys are healthy. I love them. But right now, both guys are banged up a little bit. Luck, he's listed as healthy, but, he doesn't look like his former self. We'll see. Maybe he's just got to get into. He's been out of the game for over a year, so maybe he's just got to get back into it, and he'll be fine after that. But these are two guys. I've got a couple question marks, for both Luck and Hilton, but the potential's there for sure. Hilton, another guy, could have double-digit catches, double-digit targets. It's just a wait and see for me, though, Joe. I know you won't be able to wait and see because you want to get T.Y. Hilton. As the number 1 receiver on your team. He may just be a number 2 receiver at this point, though, Joe.
Well, we'll wait and see. But Andrew Luck in the picture kind of changes things quite a bit. But the next guy we got here at number 8 may be a hot take as well, but I like Devontae Adams out of Green Bay. He was really good last year. I know Danny Shimon would disagree with this, but I like him as a top 10 wide receiver. Rodgers looks his way often. And if they do pull the trigger and trade Randall Cobb, Devontae Adams' value is going to skyrocket. So for a receiver you can get a little bit later than all the other guys, I think he's a great value, and I think he's going to be one of the top receivers in the league this year.
Yeah, I agree. I think if they're looking to get rid of Randall Cobb or trade Randall Cobb, it just makes Devontae Adams all that much more attractive for fantasy owners. What I like about Devontae Adams, he scores touchdowns.
He does.
You know, he's a touchdown machine. You know, it's like what Brandon Marshall used to do. So, yeah, I'm high on Devontae Adams. I targeted him, couldn't get him. But yeah, I might even have him ranked ahead of T.Y. Hilton at this point. That's just nitpicking, though.
Yeah, they're close for me. But again, the next guy here is another guy that's bounce back candidate, and that's AJ Green. He's super talented. You and I both like him a lot. But you know, he's never in the top conversation of, like, you know, the top 5. He's always in the top 10 for me. Is this the year that he proves us wrong, John?
I think it's a bounce back year for him. It's just a shame he's got Andy Dalton throwing him the ball.
Yeah.
If he had Tom Brady throwing him the ball, he'd be the top receiver in the league. But you know, he'd look good in Seattle too, Joe.
Yeah, he would.
We'll see. I think he's still a good wide receiver. He could be a number 1, maybe with Andy Dalton, and you know, at this stage of his career, he's probably a number 2. But he's going to get drafted as a number 1.
Yeah, I think he's going to have a bounce back year, but again, we'll wait and see. And at number 10, I got Old Faithful here, John, and that's Larry Fitzgerald. Someone who fell ridiculously far in our draft on Friday. I think I got him in the 5th round or 6th round, which I think is absolutely crazy for a guy of his caliber. Larry Fitzgerald's a PPR machine. He is the definition of consistency. And yes, he's getting older, but you know, everyone looks his way often. He's dependable. So Larry Fitz, I think you're set for more of the same. I think Larry Fitz is always a solid pickup, and I think for what he's going to get you, for how late he's going, I think he could very well be one of the best value picks in the draft.
I agree. I love having a guy like Larry Fitzgerald or Jarvis Landry in my receiving core just for the floor, because they constantly put out, you know, double digits a week. You know, you're at least getting points from them. And with Sam Bradford, if Sam Bradford stays healthy, Sam Bradford is perfect. He's going to hit a lot of Larry Fitzgerald on the short pass. So, yeah, I like Fitz.
Yeah, Larry Fitz is always solid. And another PPR machine from last year in Minnesota is Adam Thielen. I think that's going to continue, especially with Kirk Cousins behind center. And, you know, Adam Thielen was a monster, and he's fast, and he's quick. He's working out of that slot. Kirk Cousins likes those kind of guys, so look for more of Adam Thielen. I don't think there's any arguing there that he's going to be fantastic. And the next guy here, too, is Demaryius Thomas, who's, you know, kind of similar. He's fast, he's quick, he's big, and he gives a big threat in the field, and he's quick, and I think that's another good bounce-back season for Demaryius. So between Thielen and Thomas, John, do you like both those guys this year? Do you think Thielen can repeat what he did last season?
Well, I'd like to see Thielen do it again. There's no reason why he shouldn't, especially with Kirk Cousins there now. Demaryius Thomas is a guy you can always count on for right around 1,000 yards, you know, 70, 80 catches, and, you know, half a dozen to, you know, double-digit touchdowns. He's another consistent guy. You know, not like a big PPR, you know, a lot of catches guy like Fitzgerald, but, you know, very consistent. I also like the guy opposite Thomas too, Emmanuel Sanders, guy that's super hard to cover, you know, for other cornerbacks. So, you know, either one of those guys in the Broncos with Case Keenum, I like. They're good fantasy plays.
For sure, both those guys, quality options. And getting into the next chunk of guys here at number 13, I've got Doug Baldwin. He is fighting a knee injury, but I think if he shakes that off, I don't think he's in that bad a shape. Doug Baldwin has been a fantastic fantasy player over the last 3 years, and Russell Wilson looks his way often. But because of that injury, that may induce the Seahawks to get some of those free agent wide receivers that have recently been cut. Maybe who we talked about earlier, Kenny Britt might be an option for those guys. But again, Doug Baldwin's been a quality player, and following him is Tyreek Hill. I know you're a big fan of him. He's a big speed demon. And John, talk about your boy, Tyreek.
Well, I like Doug Baldwin too. His injury scares me off a little bit. Tyreek Hill, probably a candidate for regression. I like him, of course. He's a game breaker. With the new quarterback, he's not going to do as well as he did with Alex Smith. Alex Smith threw the deep ball well last year. The veteran leadership, just we got to see what we have with Pat Mahomes. So Tyreek Hill, likely a candidate for regression.
Well, we're gonna find out, John. It's either boom or bust, and I like Mahomes, so I'm leaning towards the boom side, but we'll wait and see. And a guy who just kind of free fell in my rankings from last season is Mike Evans. I have him ranked at number 15. He's another great bounce back candidate, another great value pick for how far he's fallen in drafts. We all know how talented he is, but Jameis is out the first 4 games of the year, so you don't exactly know how that's going to affect him. But he's still going to catch a lot of balls. He's still a big guy, and he's going to score touchdowns. So he's a great value pick, and I love him.
Bounce back year for him, I think. I had him 2 years ago, man. He was getting double-digit targets every game. He was just a monster. Love to see that again from this year. I probably would rank him higher. I'm okay with drafting him to be a number 1 receiver this year. I think he will hit those numbers, number 1 receiver numbers.
He's got the potential, John. I don't think he can do worse than he did last year. And another guy that's going to get mass amount of targets in Cleveland is Jarvis Landry. He's a guy that, after watching the preseason, I may end up moving him up in my rankings, but I love Jarvis Landry. I always have. He's going to be a PPR machine. And bless him, John. I mean, watching Hard Knocks, I just constantly say bless him all the time now. Jarvis has got a lot of passion, a lot of fire, and he's trying to change the culture down there in Cleveland. So I'm excited to see what Jarvis Landry can do, and I think he's a quality number 1 receiver, and in PPR leagues, he could be the top scoring receiver in the league if things fall the right way. Do you feel the same way about Jarvis?
Well, I love having Jarvis Landry on my team. He's just so consistent. I think he'll with Ryan Tannehill and Jay Cutler and all those guys he had thrown to him last year, Tyrod Taylor, I think, is a little bit of a step up from those guys. So there's no reason why he shouldn't be catching, 9 balls a game. But we'll see. I mean, he should be getting double-digit targets every game.
That's what I'm thinking, John. And, all these next chunk of guys I'm going to talk about are target machines. And Golden Tate and Amari Cooper in Detroit and Oakland, respectively. And these are some guys that I expect to kind of have more bounce-back years, too. I mean, Golden Tate has been very solid over the last few years, but Amari Cooper took a big step back last year. If there's any system he's going to thrive in, it's in a John Gruden-led system. And I think both him and Golden Tate could have bounce-back years. That's why I put them inside my top 20. What do you think about Tate and Cooper?
Well, I love Golden Tate. Very consistent, a lot of targets. He's the guy in Detroit. Amari Cooper had like a 60-point game one game last year, then didn't do anything for the rest of the year. He was injured, banged up, but it could be a bounce-back year for Amari Cooper. I'd like to see him do it first before I say anything else, though.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see, but I like Amari Cooper to bounce back, and I think it's a good value pick. Same thing with the next guy on the list, and Juju Smith-Schuster. I like what he did in Pittsburgh last year as a rookie, and Martavis Bryant's gone now, so he's number 2 behind Antonio Brown. And if Brown gets injured, Juju's value is tremendously high. So love Juju Smith-Schuster. He is worth a good, probably 5th or 6th round pick. I have no problem getting him there. And then same thing with the next guy on this list, Michael Crabtree. Left Oakland, now he's in Baltimore. Joe Flacco is going to look his way often, and I think Michael Crabtree has a lot of potential to be even better than he was in Oakland. Do you think that both Schuster and Crabtree can duplicate their success from last year?
Schuster for sure. Crabtree, I'm not sure. I mean, Crabtree, of course, good in the red zone. Juju Smith-Schuster should have another good year, though.
Yeah, I think so too. And Stephon Diggs is another guy that's going to have a good year. He signed a huge contract in the offseason. Minnesota obviously loves him. And plus, he's got Kirk Cousins throwing him the ball. So Stephon Diggs has a lot of potential to have a huge season here. And He's kind of one of those forgotten guys when it comes to these drafts. I don't know about you, John, but it seems like Stephon Diggs fell way further than he should in our draft.
Yeah, I don't know why. He got paid. He should be, he's a great receiver. He's got Kirk Cousins throwing the ball now. I just think maybe he's a little low on this list for me. I'm a little higher than you are, Joe.
Well, I think we're gonna find out this year. He got paid. I'm just waiting to see it on the field. The potential's there, no doubt. But looking forward to watching him play this year. Another guy that kind of skyrocketed up my list after his performance last year was Marvin Jones down in Detroit. He's one of those guys that has a lot of boom and bust games, but Golden Tate's a little bit banged up right now, and Stafford has been throwing the ball all over the place. So I think Marvin Jones is more involved this year, and I think he's going to be a solid, wide receiver 2, maybe a wide receiver 3, but he's going to have some big games in there, just like he did last year. Do you think Marvin Jones can be a quality wide receiver 2?
Man, I hope so. I've got him on my team, so I like Marvin Jones. I think, last year he lit it up and then disappeared. I'm hoping that he doesn't disappear again. Of course, I think he was banged up second half of last season, so I'm hoping, he's a 1,000-yard receiver. So the potential is there, Joe. And of course, if he does great, my team should do good.
Agreed, man. I think it's going to be fun to watch the start of the season. And to round out our top 25, I've got 3 guys. I've got a Bear, an ex-Bear, and a Ram. And Allen Robinson, Alshon Jeffrey, and Brandon Cooks. Allen Robinson coming over from the Jaguars, finally healthy again, playing for the Bears. Trubisky has a big target who's going to be targeted heavily. So I think Allen Robinson's going to have a great year and maybe overperform the ranking that I have him in right now. But just because of injury history, I have him a little bit lower. But he's definitely got a ton of potential. Alshon Jeffrey starting the season on the PUP list, so he won't be starting the year. Probably won't be on the team until probably week 4 or 5. I still think Jeffrey's going to have some quality games when he gets back, but definitely monitor that situation. And then Brandon Cooks getting traded from the Patriots in the offseason to the Rams. Just a really talented guy to go with the rest of that receiving core. I think he's going to be targeted heavily. Between these 3 guys, John, Robinson, Jeffrey, and Cooks, who do you think has the best season, and what do you think about their outlooks?
Well, Cooks, I like him. I had him last year, and I liked him. He did all right, but he seemed to be an every other game guy, and he's going to be splitting targets with Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp. I actually kind of like Cooper Kupp a lot more than Cooks, but Allen Robinson, we got to see. He hasn't even really played much for the Bears at all. So the guy who could be the best out of those 3 that you mentioned could be Allen Robinson.
Yeah, I think he's got a quality year as long as he stays healthy. And, that's through our top 25. I'll give you guys a quick preview of the other 5 leading up to 30. And then, everything else will be on fantasyfootballgoon.com. 26, I've got Allen Hurns in Dallas. I like what I've seen out of him so far. Devontae Parker in Miami at 27. I know he's battling injury, but he's got a ton of potential. Robert Woods, who we just talked about, at 28. Robbie Anderson in New York Jets at number 29. And then Corey Davis, the Tennessee Titan, sitting in there at number 30. So I like all these guys. There's a bunch of other guys in the rest of my rankings you can check out on fantasyfootballgoon.com. But I think it's time to talk quarterbacks, John. What do you think?
All right, let's talk some quarterbacks.
Yeah, and I think for these, what I'll do is I'll just read off the top 15, and then we can kind of talk about it afterwards. So my rankings are as follows. At number 1, I got Aaron Rodgers. Number 2, Tom Brady. Number 3, Deshaun Watson. Number 4, a little bit of a risque pick, is Andrew Luck. I'm expecting big things from him. Number 5, Drew Brees. Number 6, Carson Wentz. Number 7, Russell Wilson. Number 8, Kirk Cousins. Number 9, Ben Roethlisberger. Number 10, Matt Ryan. Number 11, Matthew Stafford. Number 12, Phillip Rivers. Number 13, Patrick Mahomes. Number 14, Jimmy Garoppolo. And number 15, Eli Manning. So that's an interesting list, John. I know there's a lot of kind of strange picks in there, but I really like Andrew Luck this year, and I think putting him at number 4 kind of cements my feelings. What do you think about that?
Man, I got to wait and see that. He's been out of the game for a year. It'll be a bold prediction if it comes true. I tell you. I'd probably put Russell Wilson a little bit higher. That's just me. I know he runs around a lot, makes a lot of plays. His wide receiver core is banged up. He doesn't have Jimmy Graham anymore, so that's going to ding him a little bit. Of course, Tom Brady has just looked phenomenal this preseason. He's in mid-season form already. As far as like top fantasy producing points, Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady, and Russell Wilson, those are top three. Deshaun Watson, I think, will probably take a step back. I don't know if he can do exactly all that he did last year. We'll have to wait and see. But
easy schedule.
They do have an easy schedule, right? Yeah, and then love Phillip Rivers' potential this year. Of course, Matt Ryan, I think, will have a bounce back year as well. Ben Roethlisberger's got great targets, so I mean, those guys would be a little bit higher for me, I think. But and then Mahomes has got that top 5 potential, but he's got to prove it.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of these guys on this list have something to prove, and even Drew Brees at number 5 is a lot to prove for a guy that some people say is getting older and starting to regress. But Drew Brees keeps on chucking the ball downfield, and he's got some great quality targets to throw to. So I expect more of the same out of Drew Brees, and that's why I have him ranked at number 5.
Well, I love Brees this year. He's got more weapons now, Alvin Kamara, we'll see what he can do. We've got Michael Thomas. They drafted a promising rookie. Still got Ted Ginn. He's got Ben Watson at tight end. So, last time Watson and Brees were together, they did some damage, a lot of targets for Watson. So, we'll see. It's a good list so far, though, Joe.
Yeah, and after that top 15, if you want to see the rest of my quarterback rankings, make sure you check out fantasyfootballgoon.com in the rankings section. But, now that we talked about quarterbacks, let's talk about tight ends, John. It's a weird position this year because there's like a bunch of top tier guys, and then it kind of falls off quickly. So for me, the top three guys are Rob Gronkowski, Zach Ertz, and Travis Kelce. And that's the order I have them in. Those 3 guys are going to be fantastic. I don't think there's any questioning that. So if you can get those guys, it's probably going to take a second-round pick to get any of those guys. Gronk may go in the first. But do you think it's those 3 guys in that order, John?
Yeah, I completely agree in that order. And Zach Ertz, with all the wide receivers banged up those first few weeks, he should just go nuts. So, I like the order. Travis Kelce may take a step back, this year as he gets used to the new quarterback. But those are the top 3.
Yeah, and rounding out that top 3, John, I have at number 4 Evan Engram from the Giants. He was dynamite last year, and I expect more of the same, especially with some of those other targets back. I know some people think that may hurt, but I think having those targets back are going to take some of the heat off of him and kind of give Ingram a lot of time to get open. So I like Evan Engram this year. I know you do. What do you think for Evan Ingram's rookie or sophomore campaign?
Well, I'd probably have him 4th as well, but based on last year, what he did, probably will take a step back if Odell Beckham Jr. is producing, but should still see a lot of targets and should still produce as one of the top tight ends.
Yeah, and at number 5, I have a bit of a surprise entry here, and I have Trey Burton from the Bears ranked at number 5. Watching this preseason, he has been heavily targeted by Mitch Trubisky. He's a little guy, but he just gets open. He's small for a tight end, but he's been really good with his hands, and he's getting yards after the catch, which is really impressive. So I think Trey Burton finishes the year as a top 5 tight end. Is that a hot take, John, or do you think that's pretty accurate?
Well, I'm right there with you. As long as Mitch Trubisky, can get him the ball consistently. Trey Burton's very fast. He's the Bears' Jordan Reed. That's what he is. He's not a blocker. He's a receiver. And Matt Nagy has found ways to scheme him open. So, yeah, he's a guy that could be rivaling Evan Engram for that 4th spot, I think. So I think you're right on.
Yeah, well, we're going to see. But he's going pretty high in all the drafts we've had so far. even mock drafts, he's going relatively high. So people are buying the hype on Trey Burton. I know I'm driving the train. So Trey Burton, get him on your squad. At number 6, I have an ex-Bear and Greg Olsen in Carolina. He's coming off an injury as well, but when Greg Olsen's healthy, he's one of the best in the game. So if you can get him as your guy at number 6, is the 6th best tight end on the board. I really like what you can get there. I mean, Greg Olsen, I think, went in the 7th or 8th round in our draft. So that's great value for a guy that, if he's healthy, is going to be really, really good.
Yeah, a guy that knows how to get open. Doesn't have a lot of competition around him. He's going to be splitting targets with Devin Funchess and DJ Moore, Torrey Smith. But, I think Greg Olsen could probably be the leading receiver, battle for the leading receiver spot with Christian McCaffrey on that team.
I agree with you, man. I agree. And then the next guy on this list, you can argue is more receiver than he is blocker too, and that's Jimmy Graham, coming over and to Green Bay now with Aaron Rodgers, arguably the best quarterback in the league. So, now that he's there, I mean, they have to use him. I don't think there's any way you pay the guy that much money and then he just kind of is used as a decoy. So I think Jimmy Graham is going to be used, and I think he's worth picking up as the 8th best tight end on the board, or 7th best tight end on the board. My apologies. I think he's going to be a guy that you can get relatively late for tight end, and he can do well for you. Hopefully Green Bay can get their act together with the tight end, but I think if there's any guy that's going to do it, it's going to be Jimmy.
Well, he certainly has the potential. I'm not as high on him as most people. I don't think he's going to get a lot of catches. I think he could get a lot of touchdowns, though. But that would be bad news for Devontae Adams owners. But Jimmy Graham getting up there in age doesn't have the separation. More of a box-out guy, but he's going to be a threat in the red zone. So that's where you're going to get your points with Jimmy Graham. He's a guy that could have 10 touchdowns.
That's your value for sure. And another guy who's aging in this league but is very good is Delaney Walker in Tennessee. He's been one of the best tight ends in the league the last few years. He's consistent, but he's getting old. But for that reason, I have him ranked a little bit lower at number 8. But Delaney Walker is still a quality option, and he's going to be looked at often. So I don't think there's any issue grabbing Delaney Walker a little bit later. I think he was there in the 10th and 11th round in the draft we had last week. So for that late in your draft, I think that's a steal.
Well, I like his potential this year, especially with Richard Matthews injured. So I think he'll have a little more opportunities for targets. He's very consistent, Joe. I like his potential this year. As he's getting older, he's probably going to not hit the numbers he once hit. But definitely he'll be one of the top 10 tight ends.
Agreed, 100%. So love what I see out of Delaney Walker, and would love to see him keep playing and see what he can do. But at number 9 is a guy that you and I both liked a lot last year, and George Kittle from San Francisco. He's in the perfect offense, and he gets targeted pretty frequently from Jimmy G. So I think Garoppolo is going to keep looking his way, and I think that offense is going to find a way to get him the ball. So I would not be surprised if George Kittle finishes the season as a top 10 tight end. That's where I have him ranked, and that's where I think he's going to finish. What do you think about George Kittle, John?
Well, I like him. I just don't like the injury risk.
Sure.
But if he's healthy, he'll be a top 10 tight end. He's a little bit banged up right now. He's a little bit banged up last year. I just hope it's not a trend with him. There's some other guys I might pick ahead of him if I think he's going to be, too injured. But healthy, I like his potential a lot.
Yeah, and one of those guys that you might pick in front of him, John, is the guy I have ranked next, and that's Kyle Rudolph. He was pretty darn consistent last year. With all those threats there and a new quarterback, you never know how it's going to be with the tight end. But Kyle Rudolph has been pretty good the last couple seasons, and he's pretty darn consistent for a tight end. So that's what you look for. And if you're looking for a tight end late, Kyle Rudolph's not a bad option. I still think he finishes in the top 10, and he's got a new quarterback, so that might make things even better for him.
Yeah, this is a candidate for a better season this year. I think he'll have a better season than last year. I think Kirk Cousins likes to throw to the tight end. Kyle Rudolph is a guy who's a really smart player, very consistent. I think you'll see him down in the red zone a lot. and he's a guy that could get a lot of targets. More targets than last year.
Agreed, John. And the next 5 guys are round out our top 15, and I'll quickly run through them, and then the rest of the rankings you can see online. At number 11, I've got Jordan Reed, talented player, just always injured. That's kind of why I have him there. Number 12, I've got Tyler Eifert. I think he's going to have a bounce back year in Cincinnati. He was often injured last year and very, very hurt, but I think he's going to bounce back. Number 13, I have rookie tight end in Baltimore, and I'm not talking about Hayden Hurst. I'm talking about Mark Andrews. I think he's going to be the guy there. I have him ranked at 13. I think he's going to get involved and potentially have a breakout season. 14, I got Austin Seferian-Jenkins. He's now in Jacksonville and taking the place of Mercedes Lewis. So I think he has a quality year there and gets more involved and hopefully can settle his off-the-field issues. And then rounding out our top 15, at 15, I've got Jack Doyle in Indianapolis. I know he had a great year last year, but they acquired Eric Ebron in the offseason, so I think that's going to cloudy up his value a little bit. But if he's still there, I think he's a quality guy you can plug in for bye weeks, or if Ebron gets hurt, which he frequently does, he could be an even better option. So definitely worth drafting Jack Doyle just as a backup tight end. And then for the rest of our rankings, you can go to fantasyfootballgoon.com and check out our rankings section for the rest of our tight ends. And with that said, John, we're moving into the defenses and kicker section.
Couple tight ends I might mention. I like David Njoku and Ben Watson and Ricky Seals-Jones. Those are some tight ends to keep an eye out for that could, fly up into that top 15 if with the right, situations and.
For sure, and Njoku's actually a guy I have ranked at 16, so he's just outside of my top 15. I like his potential. Benjamin Watson I have at 19, and Ricky Seals-Jones I have at 24. So those are all guys to keep on your radar, and they're going to be guys we're going to be talking about during the season. They're going to be on, some of those guys are going to be on waivers, so definitely keep your eyes and ears open, especially when injuries pop up. But that's our tight end section, John, and we're moving to the defense kickers. So we'll kind of make this quick because we're kind of approaching an hour and a half territory. But we'll quickly talk about the top 10 defenses. I'll just rattle them off and we can talk. Obviously, number 1, I have Jacksonville. They were unbelievable last year, followed by the Vikings, Rams, Eagles at 4, Saints at 5, Chargers defense at 6, Broncos at 7, Texans at 8, Ravens at 9, and Seahawks at 10. So that's my top 10 there, John. I think the standout team to talk about there, at least for me, out of all these teams, for value pick, is the Texans at the 8th best defense. They have the easiest schedule, which we talked about earlier, and I think with a lot of those guys, J.J. Watt and Jadeveon Clowney coming back healthy, that they could be a great steal pick for how late they were going. So they're my target here, John. Out of these top 10, what do you think of these guys?
Well, they can't do much worse. They were the worst defense in the league last year. But, J.J. Watt, Whitney Merciless, Jadeveon Clowney, all healthy. They signed the Honey Badger. They should be a good defense. We'll see. Again, they have that easy schedule. So, it's a good pick. And, defenses, people are starting to pick defenses 8th round, sometimes 7th round, 8th, 9th round. And then if you miss out on, say you pick somebody in the 8th round, then right after that you run on defenses go. Then you're looking at the 2nd, 3rd tier defenses when your pick comes back around. So my tip would be for people to start thinking about defenses in the 7th round, looking to draft them in the 8th round. Just watch and see when that defensive run, because as soon as Jacksonville is picked first, you're going to see Philadelphia go off the board, Minnesota go off the board, Rams go off the board. So that's just about all I can say. That would be my tip.
Well, John, I think it's subjective by league. Like in our league, our draft on Saturday, Jacksonville went in the 6th round, and then the rest of the defense didn't start going until the 8th round. So I'm with you. I think the 8th round is kind of that magic number round. But for me, I'm more comfortable taking a defense in the 9th or 10th round. So seeing what's best available at that point and kind of going that way. I like getting value picks with my defense. So I think there's a lot of position players that you can get between the 6th and 8th round that you can really gain an advantage upon the other guys in your league. So I think it's worth, taking a defense in the 9th or 10th, but I know that's starting to change in every league that you're in. And, there's a lot of defenses to talk about, but I think the top 10 there are the most noteworthy ones. And, you got to play waivers for your bye week, but besides that, I think you draft one defense and leave it at that.
Yeah, rosters are too small to hold two defenses, but you got to look towards one, and there just isn't enough room on benches to hold two defenses. I'd say if instead of 15 slot squads, if it was 16, I would add a defense in the back, backup defense, but. You're just going to have to drop your lowest ranked player and pick up a defense for that bye week, and then go back to playing the waiver wire.
Yeah, anything could really happen. So you just gotta watch everything and stay on top of it. So we talked about our top 10 defenses. The other 10 of the top 20 can be found on fantasyfootballgoon.com on the rankings section. And we'll quickly talk about kickers, John. So it should be a quick conversation. My top 5 kickers are Steven Gostkowski from New England, followed by Matt Bryant in Atlanta, Justin Tucker at number 3 in Baltimore, Greg the Leg Zuerlein at number 4 in LA and the Rams, and then Will Lutz at number 5 for the Saints. Funny how there's 2 dome kickers on that list. You and I both love a good dome kicker.
Yeah, I can't argue with any of that, Joe. Zuerlein should have plenty of opportunities. All the high-scoring offenses, that's what you want to look at. Will Lutz, Gostkowski, Zuerlein. These are all top kickers. Jake Elliott on Philadelphia, Harrison Butker on Kansas City. And whoever's going to be the Chargers kicker, I'd look forward to, because I think he'll have a lot of chances as well. Then, all the... Matt Prater, always a solid pick as well. Now you got to look at this Daniel Carlson kid, like we were talking in the beginning, Joe, because Minnesota should be a pretty good offense too. I think he'll have plenty of opportunities. He's got a very strong leg. Should be kicking some of those long, 40 and 50-yard field goals. Yeah, it's a good year for kickers. So I think there's no better time to draft a kicker than the last round, because there's going to be a lot of guys left. I got Vinatieri with the last pick in my draft last Saturday, and I have no problem with that. Yeah, and I picked up Harrison Butker, who's should be a good year for him, as Kansas City should be able to move the ball, at least get in range a bunch of times. So I got him in the last round as well. Well, we did it, John. We talked about all our rankings, and for all the other ones we didn't talk about, you can make sure you visit us at fantasyfootballgoon.com and check out the rankings section. We update that every single week with the matchups and who's playing what team and who's on bye. So definitely keep an eye on that, and we will update you throughout the season. So watch our Twitter feed at FFBGoon. So we'll keep you in the know. We answer all questions all season long. So make sure you send us your lineup questions, because Tooch and I are going to answer them. And make sure you follow us on Instagram and subscribe to us on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and SoundCloud. Also, make sure you follow our friends at Bears Barroom. They have tons of great content, and they have some shows with us on them too. So we're gonna be on some of their shows, and all those are gonna be on our show, I believe, next week. So tons of good stuff coming up with the guys and girls over at Bears Barroom. Tooch, thank you as always for joining me, my friend. It was my pleasure. Just wanted to remind Barflies to sign up for Pro Football Pick'em, and go head-to-head against Vegas with Goon and I. So if you can, it's a free league, and there should be surprises at the end of the season. Some fantasy football Goon swag, maybe a Box Office Bros t-shirt. Yeah. We'll sign up for Pro Football Pick'em. Yeah, and if anyone out there is interested in playing in our Pro Football Pick'em against the spread, it's absolutely free. Shoot us a DM, and we will gladly give you the information to get you in that league. It's going to be a ton of fun, and we're really looking forward to it. So Pro Football Pick'em with the Goon and Tooch and the rest of the Bears Barroom crew. So it's going to be a really good time, and we can't wait to pick the games, and it's going to be a good time. Yeah, man, can't wait for the season, Joe. It's right around the corner. That's right, and with that said, God bless America,
God bless football, and let's kick some ass. We will see you guys next time. Ready for some football, baby.